Thank you, Shai, and thanks for the introduction, and thank you for giving the censored version and not the uncensored, because you know too much. And I want to tell you that the last time Shai and I shared a stage, you're going to need some imagination, was 35 years ago, actually, when Virgin Atlantic was founded. And we were actually dancing partners in a folk dancing group in Jerusalem. And for some awkward reason, the managers thought it would be funny to make a pair out of us. Now, he's tall. So here we are. We're just going to talk. So I think it's better. Although I heard there's going to be dancing tonight, so we might skill. So anyway, we're here to talk about branding. We have the super all-star team of business people to share with us their experience, and I want to invite them to stage. First and foremost, the person, the legend, Sir Richard Branson, who came all the way especially to open this Atlantic over there. Joining us will be Ofra Strauss, chairperson of the board of directors, Strauss Group, Gil Shved, founder and chief executive officer of Checkpoint, and Avisha Avrami, co-founder, CEO of VIX. Okay.
Where should I sit?
Dana, how do you want us to sit?
Wherever is good for you is good for me.
Thank you.
Free seating.
Free seating.
Okay. So, as I said, we're going to try and talk a bit about branding. It's quite obvious when we see we're under the Virgin brand. We're going to talk about how to target a customer audience. What do you do with the change? How do you stay up to date with all these technological updates? But I want to start, I think, with a question that everyone in this room has on the top of their mind, and I'm going to do it in the very Israeli way because we're in Israel. It's to you, Sir Richard. Sir Richard, what is better for you?
Richard, please.
Richard. This is the question I think everyone is asking themselves. How the hell do you do it? How do you manage to stay so relevant, so fresh, so successful? 50 years with Virgin, celebrating 70 next year. Give us the secret formula.
Nice to see you all, by the way. Look, I enjoy every minute of my life. So, I love the variety, I think, of what we do, both at Virgin and through our foundation. And when it comes to a brand, your brand and your reputation is everything you have in life. So, and you don't really have a brand until you've actually built a product that people love, and you just can't let people down. So, over the last 50 years, we've had to make sure that every new Virgin company that we set up is challenging companies that are challenging the status quo and doing a lot better than our bigger competitors. When we went from the music business into the airline business, I was 28 and hated flying on other people's airlines. The experience was dire. You'd be lucky to get a lump of chicken dumped on your lap. No entertainment. The cabin crew obviously hated the job, and it was a miserable experience. And so we just got this one second-hand 747 35 years ago to compete with British Airways 300. And nobody gave us more than 12 months. But because, we got everything right on that 747, stand-up bars, lounges, we were the first airline by about 7 years to put seat-back videos in all our seats. The cabin crew, were really proud of the fact that, the seats were comfortable and so they could smile, they could be happy, and our guests were happy. And so, so Virgin did survive. And then a year later, we got our next two planes, and it grew from there. But in the end, having a lot of fun, enjoying everything you do, throwing yourself wholeheartedly into it, learning every day, learning about things you don't know.
Yeah, in a sense, you're saying business is supposed to be fun and pleasurable and with a smile, doing business with a smile. Now, we're talking about brands, and when people think about a brand, they automatically think about Virgin and you. And I understand that it really goes back in your family. I mean, it was preordained that you had to do with branding.
So I only just learned this recently, but I looked up Branson and going back a number of centuries, and it turned out that my great or whatever grandfather was called Branson. So and they used to their job was stamping the back of cows, branding cows. And
you've got a long way from stamping cows, okay? Just saying. We've branded a lot of cows anyway over the years. That's great. Ofra, I want to turn to you because you also...
The cows.
No, that's a good... Didn't think about it. That's a good... Because, Ofra's business started from a dairy.
2 cows, yeah. My grandparents started the business with
So we're actually talking not about aviation, but cows.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Shai, it's cows.
Yeah.
Ofra, but you manage... You've taken a family business and turned it into a global enterprise with in over 20 countries, traded in the stock market, second largest food product manufacturer in Israel, global with hummus, with sabra, with coffee. And at the end of the day, when you wake up and you go into your office, you see the family name on top. What does that mean to have the family name as the brand?
Well, I have to say, I always have to tone you down. Yeah, we are international business, Israeli based, and yes, half of our revenue is outside of
water.
Water for you?
Yeah, I'm grabbing it.
Okay. So I have to say that when I come to the office, I never think about it as my family name is there, but I really think of it as is the name of everyone who works in the company and everyone who has any touch with everything we say and with everything we mean. And I have to say, if there's one thing I learned from you is to get the courage to really think beyond what is the brand today, and to get the courage to talk about things that are beyond our products. And for many years, business people or brands of business were confined to the colors of the logo or their product, but to actually speak up of social things, on things that are, yes, related to the business. So the business boundaries are now much better than definitely a business, the family, or my name. It's just businesses and brands today are expected to just do much more. And at the beginning, really, it was, when I remember the stage, I became the chair of the business. It was, yes, about selling great products, high quality, sell more, being really responsible that they are good. But now it's, people's health, how we employ, how we... So when we talk about different countries, and so I actually see those much more holistic thing of what the brand is all about, and that's a great way to communicate.
In a sense, when you are working with consumer markets, then you have to think, either make them love you, or make them respect you, or trust you, which turns me to Gil. Gil, of course, we all know Gil. I know Gil, actually, he's Shai's best friend. He forgot to mention that. We know Gil since he was 13.
Really, yeah.
So this is like a family, this is like a mafia gathering.
This is Shai's...
But Gil, of course, you founded Checkpoint back.
Who's your best friend? He could give us a loan, do you think?
Always doing business with a smile, yes, as we see. So, Gil, you founded Checkpoint 25 years ago and turned it into this, I think, a leading company with a 16 billion market cap and offices over 80 countries in the world, and over 5,400 employees, over 2,000 here in Israel. When you founded Checkpoint back then, what were you thinking? Were you even thinking about branding? Because your business is different. You are a B2B and even very niche B2B. How did you think you would be successful with that brand? What was your goal?
So I think our challenge was to come from Israel and come with a very technical product, and cybersecurity is something very, very technical. We hardly understand that. And to make it something that people will still associate with. So we thought about a name that's not an Israeli name, a name Checkpoint, which has nothing to do with our culture or things that are in Hebrew or Israelis. We thought a logo that still, by the way, the logo is still something that creates a lot of debate. We have a very colorful pink logo that looks very childish, and it was very intentional. We wanted to make it fun. We wanted to take this serious subject of security and turn it into something, at least on the logo, because in the business we have to be very, very serious about security, but in the logo make it something that stands out, that make it more playful, more simple to use, things that people will remember, and people still remember it. Again, some like it, some dislike it, but still it stands out. And I think we were always thinking about how to create an international brand, and a brand that would not just talk to us, because we're not the target market, but will speak to businesses around the world.
And you knew that you had to make it in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, our goal from day one was very clear, that if we want to be successful in technology, we need to be successful in the U.S. market. If we're successful in America, it will flow to the rest of the world. And I think, by the way, it did. I mean, we were the first year, all our investment was in sales and marketing in the U.S., and the second year, already half the sales were outside the U.S., because at least in technology, everybody's looking into the American market and following what's the successes of the U.S.
Avishai, you're the co-founder of VIX, and you started up in 2006, and you've turned to the world's leading do-it-yourself web publishing platform. You have over 154 million registered users in 190 countries, and income of nearly $200 billion, and over 3,000 employees. And I think it would be relevant to use one of Sir Branson's earlier quotes. I found it online. I hope it's still a quote. But it goes that there is no point in starting your own business unless you do it out of a sense of frustration. Is that true? Did you say that? Okay,
yeah,
good.
That's true.
Fact checking. We don't want to be, we're still after facts. So this quote is really relevant to you because you started your business out of frustration.
So yes, it is true. When we started in 2006, my co-founder and myself were sitting, and we went through a lot of ideas, and we actually chose a different idea, not Wix. And when we worked on the website, we realized again how frustrating it is to build a website. And it was 2006, like 10 years after the internet was founded, and we kind of like sat back and said, well, it's 10 years after the internet was founded. It should be easier. It should be a better way to make a website like we want to. And we are, all three of us are technical people. If it's so hard for us, how hard it is to everybody else. And then we actually went back to the investors and we told them, okay, we're not going to do this idea anymore. We're going to do Wix. They all came and supported us. But frustration was the main driving force behind us taking this direction. And in 2008, April 2008, when we opened Wix for the first time to customers, it was obvious that the same pain that we had, right, was a massive need in the world. So we started to get this massive amount of users joining us, and pretty much since then, it's the same thing.
But you understood early on also that you had to be about branding and you had to be about marketing, which isn't something that usually is very strong in Israel. Israeli companies are good with tech. They're not that strong with branding and marketing.
Yes, when we, again, in 2006, when we went, and actually 2007, we went to raise money, one of the first things we heard from everybody is like, well, you guys are Israelis. How come you're building a consumer product? It will never work. You guys don't know how to do marketing, you don't know how to do branding, you don't know how to do consumer-facing user interface. You should focus on building really good technology, like Checkpoint, right? And it is true. We heard it. We heard it also from you guys, right? This is true. And we were lucky to manage to raise money from people that we knew. And obviously, since then, we did the a lot of thing in marketing, like 5 Super Bowl ads, 4 of which have been
I saw
named.
that. I was at the Super Bowl. I said, wigs, because I understood nothing in Super Bowl. So wigs.
4 of them.
Technology is something.
Yeah, it was our thing. Wigs. It's
The most effective for that year, and all of them have been done from Tel Aviv. So apparently we can, if we try, and so that's pretty awesome. But I do believe that the 2 most important assets that a company have are the product itself and then the branding. I think that's the most important.
Sorry, I was going to say the Super Bowl. You're talking about the American Super Bowl.
Yes.
Yes.
American.
So, so about 30 years ago, we had an airship company, and obviously, and we would fly it for filming purposes over big events, and it had an enormous fly, Virgin Atlantic, obviously on the side of it, and NBC hired it to film the Super Bowl, but they made absolutely clear that they couldn't bring the camera up to it because Super Bowl is the most expensive advertising ever. So our wonderful team just put a banner streaming out of the back of the airship which said, NBC cameramen are the best looking people in the world. and the whole time the cameras went up. So.
That's a
I do think branding needs, I think having a bit of, not taking yourself too seriously is another very important thing with branding, and having, just having fun with your people in your company, but with your, the way you take on your bigger competitors, pulling their tail.
But it's easy to talk about it now that you're so successful. But back then it was very unconventional, not British, not proper. And then you did it anyway. You stood out. Was it intentional or it's just you and that was what you could do and that's what you knew how to do?
Well, there wasn't the internet. So we in order to get our companies well known, I had to use myself and I had to use humor and I had to risk my life flying around the world in hot air balloons and boats and sinking and
that's commitment. That's commitment, guys.
There was one occasion that we were trying to be the fastest across the Atlantic and we sank about 200 miles and Virgin Atlantic took a full page ad the next day. Next time, Richard, take the plane. I just do one more airship story, which is quite fun. So, British Airways sponsored the London Wheel, the giant wheel opposite the House of Commons, and they got all the world's press down to see this wheel being put up. But they had a technical problem, and somebody rang me up at 6 a.m. And said, BA have got a technical problem, all the press are there. So obviously I rubbed my hands together. But I then rang up our airship company that was just outside London, and they scrambled this airship. And right over this rather sad-looking, deflated wheel, Virgin airship flew over, and all it said on the side of the airship was, BA can't get it up.
Are these your ideas, or you managed to get your team to understand what you expect from them?
All the good ideas are mine. And no, I mean, I think the nice thing when somebody, we're just setting up a cruise company and called Virgin Voyages, and we can draw on these wonderful people from lots of different Virgin companies. The absolute best when we set up a new company, and they'll get a massive big blank sheet of paper. They'll make long lists of all the things that everybody hates about cruises. Why a lot of people never would dream of going on a cruise, which I'm actually one of those people. And how can we make cruises really fun and actually persuade Richard to come and have his 70th birthday on our cruise ship, so buffets. Let's get rid of buffets. Nobody likes to queue up for buffets on cruise ship and so on. So I think we're lucky at Virgin. We have 80,000 people around the world. We can draw on, the best marketing person, the person that created Virgin America, the person that did this, did that when we set up new companies.
But I mean, it's quite harder when you're not Richard Branson to use your personality as your brand, Ofra, because at the end of the day, your consumers really need to trust you because it's all about food. Now, I know that your logo has changed over the 80 years that you existed more than 5 times. Actually, it started in a very funny way. Your family made some interesting decisions back then.
Yeah, but I think, first of all, if we look at our history, my grandparents came as immigrants, really, with really having nothing, and the way they started is food. So basic to start a nation, to start a country, to start a safe place. So yes, they had a logo, but I have to say I don't think. Sometimes I think if my grandmother would have been here around, she'll be shocked probably from what we actually do now with the name. But what they did is the name Strauss in German means Batiana.
Ostrich.
Ostrich, exactly. So they did ostrich. So what they didn't know, coming from Germany, that it's not kosher, okay? So they had to, that's the first change of logo, then they used the...
But your vision is really interesting. It's creating wonders out of basics. What do you see behind that vision?
Well, it's, by the way, the logo today, it's when we merged 2 companies as we believe in partnership, and so it is about diversity. It's about opening up and the color of the world, the color of people, and that's actually the meaning today. So when we talk about colors, logo has to fit the personality of a company, and I have to refer to one thing. My claim to fame, when I became chair, they interviewed my father, and he said, she's amazing, she's fit to the job, but she has no sense of humor. Okay. So sitting here and she has no sense of humor.
You've done okay. You've done okay.
It's one of those things I remind myself, and I actually YouTubed to see a bit how ill and how the both of them are talking. I saw an interview that they're talking to each other, and wow, they talked about this amazing sense of humor that the 2 of them have, how they start the meetings with laughing and jokes, and okay, so I have to start opening up, being transparent.
Let me tell you, it was a men's world back then, and women had to be more efficient and had to get things done, and then could joke. Now you can develop a sense of humor. Yeah.
Okay, so
I actually think that sense of humor makes you more efficient.
That's the whole thing. No, I think that we can't confuse.
It's easier for you to let your hair down than it is for us.
So sense of humor is really a great thing, and you have to really separate it from, and I'm taking it to really brands and taking it to the world, is from really what you do. It's an attitude. It's not about the laughing, it's not about the jokes or the whatever. It's an attitude, and which makes it very or lighter to face failures, or to face actually being with people. You face some, and if you care, it's quite to take the sense of humor is something that is really helpful.
Yeah, I think a brand. If you're going to have a sense of humor with the public and with your competitors, it can go horribly wrong. Like any joke, any joke that you deliver can go wrong, especially when you're trying to sort of push the limits all the time. But I think as long as you can make the public smile, and then it's very difficult if you're pulling the tail of a bigger competitor. For them to be able to respond. When we were trying to get our airline into Heathrow, we were confined to Gatwick because the government protected the flag carrier, British Airways. And so one morning, we all dressed up as pirates, We arrived at Heathrow, and we turned the tail of a British Airways Concorde into a Virgin tail. And as we were fleeing, we were arrested by the police. And they only arrested us because Lord King, who was chairman of British Airways, insisted we were arrested. And then the chief of police rang up Lord King and said, you know, if we charge these people, you know, it's going to backfire on British Airways. I really think you should let them go. And so Lord King realised that maybe it was that he was playing into our hands. But anyway, obviously the public loved it. You know, they smiled. And
that means you always have to be.
We won our battle.
Always have to be the number two. You're never the first. You're always the challenger. If you want to keep that sense of humor and that edge with the public.
Yeah, I mean, with Virgin, we've started many companies in many different sectors, and we are therefore, I mean, like with a cruise company, we're going to have one cruise ship against, you know, other people's 200 cruise ships initially, so generally speaking, we're always the David versus the Goliath, but if you do become the Goliath, then you've got to. I suspect what the best thing to do is to break your company up into 2 or 3 new companies, and you know, have 2 or 3 new managing directors, and have 2 or 3 new sales managers, and so that each of those individual companies can get out there, and you know, you can be small and nimble again, and that's what we did many years ago with our record companies. Every time we became really strong, we would get the deputy and the deputies in and say, you are now the managing directors, etc., of a new company, and they all sort of competed with each other, although the ownership was the same, and they did much better, I think, as smaller units than they would have as one big unit.
That's such an interesting insight, because I think people all want to become big and strong and have the regulation try to make sure that there are enough competitors, and you're saying basically it's better not to be the Goliath because you get rusty. That's interesting. But talking about David and Goliath, Gil, we're here in Israel, and I think here in the Paris Center for Peace and Innovation, it's quite amazing the fact that I think when you started, you couldn't put on your sheet or your front page the fact that you're from Israel, and now it's not a liability but an asset when you're talking about tech. So something happened with branding Israel as the startup nation. It's I always say it should be a startup nation for all its citizens, but a startup nation, that's a brand that you use today.
So I think that's something that really changed. When I started Checkpoint, we weren't trying to highlight the fact that we are Israelis, and not because it has a good or bad brand, because people don't like some things that's foreign and they don't trust. People like things that they can understand, that they are local, and that creates trust. And so in the early days, we were saying we're a global company, we want to give you the best technology. Let's not speak about the fact that we are Israelis, obviously, even though it's evident when they meet us in person. I think today it has changed a lot, and Israel gained the brand for innovation, gained the brand for being the startup nation in the cyber industry. I think 20 or 30% of the cybersecurity industry of the world is in Israel, and there's like a few hundred startups only in cyber in Israel. And I think that, and Israel created a brand, and I think that brand is based on the experience that people had, that they saw good technology coming from Israel.
From a good country.
Avishai.
I don't know if it's a good country, but the good technology.
From a good country.
I wouldn't go there. Not today. Let's enjoy the fact that politics are out of...
You know,
no, let's give me a break from politics, okay?
You have Brexit next to us. We are a quiet, peaceful, normal.
Yeah.
We just don't have a government. Look,
we're the off-Broadway version.
A brand, I mean, a company brand or your own individual brand are really important. And I think a country's brand is incredibly important as well. And I think if a country has issues amongst its people, it's up to the politicians to get those issues sorted once and for all, so that the reputation of the country can be good.
Yeah, I think we all agree. Avishai, we're here not only to study and learn from success, but also from setbacks along the way. How hard was it for an Israeli company to doing something that hasn't been done before? I think since Gotex, the bathing suit company, there wasn't a major Israeli consumer market-oriented company coming out of Israel before Wix.
I think it was, in many ways, it was easier, I think, than it seems, because we had this incredible place to be where we can gather all the talent, right? Because nobody else was really doing that. So it was easy for us to find amazing people. And I think that we got very lucky in having an unbelievable marketing talent that enable us to go forward and establish a really clear marketing strategy, brand, and something that is really working well with the company DNA. I think, and I want to give one example of it, which is for me very important. And when we started, I think it 2008, early 2008, and we started to have a lot of traffic already coming to Wix websites. And we got this offer from a company in Israel. They said, listen, we really want to know which user go to which kind of websites. Don't give us the name of the users, just anonymous. We want to see all the cookies and how it interacts and everything. It doesn't matter for users, right? And for us, it was $100,000 a month by the offer for that amount of traffic. It was a huge amount of money, right? But our CMO, our Chief Marketing Officer, says, well, you know, our brand about being honest and protecting our users, right? If this ever leaks out that we did something like that, it'll completely destroy the honesty of the company, right? So, and I think that specific point, and then we basically did not do that because it was against that. So for us, I think that was a very strong moment where we said, okay, marketing is a huge part of the company, a part of the company that dominates who we're going to be forward. And
it's also building trust with your
yeah, client. Building trust, and building trust was something that we always put there as a real thing, because in Wix you can try the service for free, you can build your website for free. If you buy the product and you don't like it and you return it within 14 days, you don't have to ask for your money back. It's automatic, right? So it's really, everything is there, it's open, and that just continued the same line of brand.
Sir Branson, you talk a lot about
Richard, please.
Just checking if I can. You talk a lot about learning from failures. You say you don't learn to walk by following rules. You learn by doing and falling over. And don't be embarrassed by your failures. Learn from them and start again. So could you share with us some of your failures that made you start again and get over them?
No.
Well, I'm going to say, you know, let's. Maybe.
Of course. So
never ask a yes/no question. That's number one.
So I think
in interviewing.
You know, I think one of the great things I think about your country is, as was said earlier, that you're not afraid of trying things and failing. And if you're a true entrepreneur, you're definitely going to have failures along the way. And in fact, if you don't have failures, you won't have successes. So you're taking bold risks in lots of different areas, and on occasions you'll fall flat on your face. And I suspect the most notable thing that didn't work out, I don't like the word failure. The most notable thing that didn't work out was we cheekily thought we could knock Coca-Cola off their pedestal as the number one brand in the world, and we launched Virgin Cola, and it exploded.
They think it's funny.
No, well, it actually
they weren't there.
it actually exploded, and we were outselling Coke and Pepsi everywhere it went, and of course, you know, the British public loved it, the press loved it, and then we made the mistake of hiring a Sherman tank, shipping it over to America, riding in this Sherman tank to Times Square, and then crushing all these Coke and Pepsi cans with, you know, everything was spraying everywhere. And then turning the turret on the Coca-Cola sign. This was before 9/11, by the way. Turning the turret on the Coca-Cola sign, which we pyroteched up the night before.
Was that your idea also? Just checking.
Anyway, there was a large bang, and it looked like their sign had gone up. So the next day, without us knowing, Coke had a DC-10. They filled it. They filled the DC-10 with money and squat teams, and they arrived in England, and Virgin Cola just disappeared from every shelf, and the Tesco's and everybody were a lot richer as a result. So I think if you do take on a bigger competitor, I mean, when Virgin Atlantic took on British Airways, they hated us, even although we were tiny. They waged a massive dirty tricks campaign against us. They, had people going through my rubbish bins looking for incriminating stuff. They had people going to our nightclubs, rubbish bins, to see if they could find needles to place stories in the newspapers. They had a team of people behind locked doors that were tapping into our very basic computer information of 35 years ago. And then they had teams ringing our passengers, pretending to be from Virgin, and saying that the flight had been cancelled and switching them to BA. And I can give lists of what on. Anyway, we publicly said, had a press conference. They categorically denied it. We took them to court, and we won the biggest libel damages in history. We distributed all the money to our staff at Christmas time, and I think ever since then the Virgin Atlantic staff have hoped that BA will do the same thing again.
You called it the BA bonus.
The BA Christmas bonus, yes.
So when you take up a company, what would be? How do you decide now if you take up a company?
So I think the reason that Virgin Cola stumbled was we weren't dramatically better than Coca-Cola. I mean, we obviously thought we were, but I mean, a can of cola, it tastes pretty well the same. So, whereas with Virgin Atlantic, we were palpably better than the competitors. And what's remarkable with Virgin Atlantic is 35 years on, it is still palpably better than the competitors. So, so I think it was much more difficult for British Airways to drive us out of business. I mean, winning the court case, those sorts of battles all helped, helped rather than hindered Virgin Atlantic, and in fact, BA, I think, shot themselves in the foot.
But it does resonate with your motto, making business, changing business for good. You need to be able to change something. Ofra and Avishai and Gil, going global. What did you learn about going global? Can you share with us a short insight about going global? How big a challenge was going global, and where did you have to learn the difference?
So I can start. I think that we started global, but we started in English. Today we're selling it about 192 countries, if I remember correctly. And the first thing I think we learned is that in the most important thing is that to be very consistent in your story across all geographies. And if in the past maybe it would be you have to tailor your story a lot to different country, today it's a lot more common. So translate it well to the language and pretty much be very consistent, because in every, in the story that you tell, in the way that you tell it, and that worked very well for us, I think. The other thing is that we learned is that it's much better to use local symbols. So if we want to go with a celebrity in France, we'll probably use somebody from France, and not necessarily somebody that...
Not Gal Gadot from Hollywood.
Yes, not Gal Gadot, because it just works better. It creates much more...
So you have to be global and local all the time.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, and this is less about marketing and branding, but this is about customer service and understanding the issues. Every place have a different issues that you'll find. There's a lot of common, and then there will be some that we found that are very specific to this market, that they really care about that, and you have to learn that, address that, and then serve from that.
Gil, is it even an issue when you deal with software and tech geeks around the world?
I think for the most part, we have a business-to-business product, and it's fairly technical. The product itself is generally global. Very few local. We localize it to Japan, localize it sometimes in French, for Canada actually. But So the product is generally the same product, and the challenges are the same challenges. The people in every country are local. The rule that I had when I started Checkpoint is hiring people in every country that are local, unlike other companies that takes expats, Israelis, and send them to America, or Americans and send them all over the world. All my people that run all the countries are local, because at the end, people do business with other people, and they want to see people that they associate with, that they relate to, and mainly with people that understand all these local things that I may not even understand them at this point.
And Ofra and Strauss did something amazing. I want to tell to the crowd, the non-Israeli, the guests that we have here. So when we grew up, hummus was something you would eat at a restaurant. It wasn't something you would spread on your bread or take to the sandwich into the office. It was unheard of. And then Strauss came up with the notion that you can turn it into a something you put in a box in the refrigerator and you spread on bread. And not only did they do that and change the Israeli market, you convinced the American market that hummus is something healthy and that something that you need to eat on bread. How do you do that? How do you go global in that sense?
So I have to say something about the word global. Especially in food. So it goes back to the question that I forgot to answer. Creating wonders out of basics is really looking always to what is basic in people's lives, in situation, and just don't leave it like that, and just create something which is more, which is wonder in the other person's eyes. So, but basic is always something that you have to break down, look for it, and do something. So, when we go to hummus, I have to say we Israelis, we have adapted it with pride from our neighbors, the Lebanese and Syrian. It really became our food. While when we Strauss started to do it and to put the name Strauss on it, I remember the advertising agency telling me, it was personally, I was the CEO of this company at the time, he told me, your grandma is turning in her grave the name Strauss on hummus. What are you doing? So now time flies, and it becomes from this Middle East. For us, it's in every house. And to take it into the U.S., there were other entrepreneurs that tried it before. We just came at the right time, where the need actually to a nourishing, good food that you eat instead of other snacks that were in the U.S. And by the way, it takes much more time. It costs much more money. And to actually start categories that do not exist before, not just to convert something that exists and
but to open up the market.
More successful, but to convince Americans to eat hummus.
Hummus.
Hummus, yeah.
Do you like
great
hummus?
Experience.
I thought I liked it, but it ended up all over my trousers last night, so I'm not sure I like it anymore. It was absolutely delicious. So, just another sort of fun thought that came to my mind on the marketing front. So many years ago, we had these little salt and pepper pots on Virgin Atlantic, and they were shaped as windmills, and they were really attractive, and everybody stole them. I mean, it was, and I was chief executive of the airline at the time, and the chief accountant came in and saw me and said, do you know this is costing us $8 million a year, just these salt and pepper pots disappearing. But I didn't want to lose the salt.
Does anyone have a pair at home?
I'm sure. But I didn't want to get rid of them. So we just put underneath them pinch from Virgin Atlantic, and it became one of our best advertising. People at a dinner party would suddenly pick it up, and the person who'd stolen it hadn't realized. But again, if one can get these little touches, that's good.
Okay, let's open it up for questions now, and then we'll wrap up on stage. Please, it's your time.
That's frightening, isn't it? You're not even thinking of asking a question, suddenly you're told, ask a question. I tell you what, first person who asks a question gets an upper-class ticket to London.
Wow.
All right. Now, I'm afraid you were that man there. Right, can you stand up? And can somebody make sure he gets his ticket afterwards?
I want you on every panel.
And now he doesn't know what the hell he's going to ask.
You know what I want to ask?
Just introduce yourself, because we need the ticket now.
My name is Oran, and my question is, where did you eat hummus?
Where would you like me to say? What's the best for your? I was at a factory and.
Great.
No, I was at a delightful
Abu
place.
Hassan.
Where
Say
were
Abu
we?
Hassan, just around.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was very nice.
On Virgin Atlantic, it was from Strauss, yeah. It's Shai, please.
Yes. Jeff, right? Jeff? Chris, sorry, Chris. Chris Jasper. Bloomberg, yeah.
Talk about the launch of the Virgin brand initially, almost 50 years ago now. I don't remember it, obviously, back exactly at that time, but I remember when, even when the airline was launched, that the brand was a sort of slightly risky name to adopt. It had connotations. It felt slightly rebellious, and I wonder if you felt then that it was a name that would play for so long across so many different businesses. And you coined it, I know it was before the record company, but it seemed to fit particularly well with the record business. When you went into the airline industry, did you think about changing the name at all, or was it always going to be Virgin? Had it stuck by that point?
It goes back to when I was about 16 years old, and I was sitting around a room with a bunch of young girls all about the same age, and we were trying to come up with a name for a company. And I wanted to call the company Slip Disc Records, because in those days you had black vinyl and the needle would keep slipping. And then one of the girls said, laughing out loud, we're all virgins. Why don't you call it Virgin? Because you're a virgin in business as well. And so I thought Virgin sounded, we were Virgin at business. We had a lot to learn. So we decided to call it Virgin. But the registry office decided it was rude. And they wouldn't register it for 3 or 4 years. So that's actually why this is the 50th anniversary of the brand, not the 55th anniversary of the brand. And in the end, I got the English dictionary, and I wrote to the head of the registry office and said, look, what the English dictionary says about the word virgin is it's pure, unblemished, untouched, the absolute opposite of rude. And in the end, they caved in and let us call it Virgin. So I think, the great thing about the Virgin brand is because every new business we start from scratch. We were Virgin in the financial services industry when we started. We were Virgin in the mobile phone businesses when we started, and so on and so on. And so somehow Virgin works. But we zealously protect our reputation, the image of the brand. We make absolutely certain that every new company that we start is going to enhance the brand and not damage the brand. We would never dream of going into selling cigarettes or anything that we felt was going to damage people rather than help people. And somehow, it has survived 50 years.
And it's interesting because I was at Shai's and Ada's apartment a couple of weeks ago with my son, and he's 13, and Shai has a turntable or a patifon, okay? And obviously, and I don't know, Shai's son know it because they're Shai's sons and Ada's sons, but my son hasn't seen it before. So Shai tried to explain to him what this thing was, and he has some records, and he pulled out a record, and the record was Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells, which was the first record the first artist that you signed, and amazingly the logo looks almost the same. And then, so how do you keep something so I mean, you managed to keep it the same and yet so relevant. I think that's the question. How do you stay relevant in this ever-changing market?
You're just as good as whatever company you start. So, I mean, in those days, we were building a record company. It became the biggest independent record label in the world. So we attracted people like the Rolling Stones to come to sign to it, and the Sex Pistols and others. And we took risks. I mean, signing the Sex Pistols. I mean, that really helped put Virgin on the map. I mean, it was a risk at the time, but because we signed the Sex Pistols, Genesis and Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel and lots and lots of other artists wanted to sign with us because they could see that we knew how to market things, so I think the only two companies one company that didn't work out and one company that did work out, where we went into the condom business when AIDS raised its head, and we felt Virgin was maybe not quite right, and we also
Unvirgin.
we also set up something called Virgin Brides, and we found there weren't any, so that didn't work out all right either. So
that's great. Oh, okay. They all think you're not getting tickets, though, right? Or are they? No more tickets. Okay, I'll take from the back. Yeah.
Haven't we got any ladies? Have we got a lady at the back? Well done.
Hi, my name is Dina Vince, and first of all, I'm a huge fan of your work, Richard. Thank you very much for everything that you do, and you have been inspiring me personally since I became conscious. And I have two questions. The first would be, would you say that you are spiritual or conscious in the way that you conduct your business, the way Oprah would define it? And the second question would be, I don't need a ticket. I just need 5 minutes of your time to present you a couple of projects that I'm involved with.
I think I was brought up by in a fortunate and a wonderful, loving family atmosphere. My parents would. If I ever said ill of somebody, they would send me to the mirror and make me stand in front of the mirror for 10 minutes. So, so they taught me, I think, how to look for the best in people, how to spend one's life trying to make other people's lives better, etc. And so I think in that sense, I'm spiritual. I mean, my son meditates. I sit there with him, and my mind is just racing on other things. So I'm not that good at sort of at meditation, but most of my time is now spent setting up organisations to tackle some of the big issues in the world, and that we find very worthwhile. On the second point. Come and say hello afterwards.
Okay, we'll take two more questions. Shai, you choose. Richard, you choose. It's too hard for me to decide.
I'm afraid we've had two men. We'll have is there no woman? Oh, there's a woman here. All right. Sorry about that, guys.
Hello. So you have been building a brand from nothing, and my challenge is that I'm dealing with a brand of 3,000 years. The city of Jerusalem, that Child mentioned, that he was born there, and dealing with a brand that is not a consumer, but a brand of a destination, which is suffering from so many different obstacles and challenges. So if you would have humbly to advise me how to continue working with the city of Jerusalem and kind of repositioning and rebranding it, what would be your three main things for me?
I mean, I hinted at it earlier on. I think that the way you just have to together find people to run your country that overcome the big fundamental issue that your country faces. And the moment that is sorted, everything else will fall into place. I mean, everybody, love your country, but but you've got that issue. So So I think you've just got to find the right politicians to cut through. I mean, we're sitting in this centre here, and I was honoured to meet him the last time I was here, and he did his best to get to overcome this problem, but in his spirit, you've got to get that problem sorted, and then I think you'll be, our planes we'll be putting on 10 planes a day to your country.
Great. Okay, last question from Leon. Leon Kopler is here. Yes, I saw you raised your hand.
Right, you guys and girls are going to have to help me on this one.
Hi, good morning. My name is Leon Koffler.
It's a look-alike.
That's it.
Actually,
say no more.
Come and sit here and let me come and ask you the question.
Richard, you don't know. For many years now, people are saying it to me. I walked in with a gentleman this morning that said, I came all the way to listen to you talk. I can't believe you're walking without security. I introduced my daughter, and she says, oh, and she speaks Hebrew. So, yes.
Well, you're the good-looking version, so thank you. I'm glad to see that.
Well, maybe we can get a picture afterwards.
Come up here and ask the question. We'll do the picture at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You can take your badge off it. You're going to look much better. I'm going to have to start grooming him now.
Do you have and Madame Tussaud, do you already have a...
Madame Tussauds, I'll tell you another fun story of Madame Tussauds in a minute. So there was a little, I have a waxwork in Madame Tussauds, and sorry, I just finished. Sit down. And there's a little...
Let me change places so that...
There's a little sign that says Richard Branson this way. And my son was 4 years old, so I got him to sit on the floor in the corridor before people went around the corner to see the waxwork. And then I leant up against the wall and I pretended to be at waxwork. And as people came up, they'd be discussing me and saying, it doesn't look that real, or and if they said something nice, I'd put my thumbs up, and if they said something nasty, I would stick my tongue out at them. And my little boy was roaring with laughter. So it goes back a while, but it was fun. Right, sir.
Anyway, nice to meet you. My pleasure.
Well, we got a picture together.
My question to you is, you've launched a few years back Virgin Galactica, which I think is probably your most extreme venture. Even though you've taken to flight with Virgin, I think this is the most extreme. And I happen to have a ticket to fly with you. So this is...
So maybe I can put him up in my place on the first flight.
I was just thinking that, thank you for coming up, Leon. You've just because I know that you intend on going next year, no matter what. Yeah.
No, Leon, you have to be serious. Family here.
Yeah, actually, it's family. First of all, maybe you can give a little update on it, because it's such an extreme diversion. I mean, it does connect, but it's going into a very high-risk neighborhood, as we say. And in the update, just if you could speed it up a little bit, because I'm getting a little old, and I want to be on that flight with you. So,
well, if you're getting old, I'm getting really old. So, I have the chairman of my company here, Peter Norris. He's I don't know how he's kept his hair, because we started Virgin Atlantic 15 years ago. We decided that I wanted to go to space. My friends wanted to go to space. In fact, who would like to go to space in here? Most people want to go to space. Okay,
I'm staying here.
And we got the best engineers together. I mean, 800 of them, and we expected to be able to build rockets, build spaceships, build motherships, build spaceports, all within 7 years. Anyway, 15 years is where we are today. We've had an incredible year in that We put 5 people into space. We've made 5 new astronauts. The first astronauts to be made since 2009 on American soil. It's almost bankrupted the Virgin Group. I mean, we've spent a lot of money on Virgin Galactic, on Virgin Orbit. On Monday, we float the company on the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah, it'll be good to actually involve the public, and so my chairman will still talk to me. But we've got a very exciting year ahead, and you know, we've moved the whole operation to New Mexico, beautiful spaceport. The spaceships are gorgeous. The motherships are beautiful. The rockets have been, tested time and time again for years. And so, we're ready for a whole new era of space exploration. So exciting times. I look forward to getting up there.
Yeah. So thank you, Richard Branson. Oh, no. Thank you. Thank you, Richard Branson. Thank you, Gil Schwed. Thank you, Ofra. And thank you, Abishai. And thank you all. Thank you, Shai.